Lay. What's up? Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on.
Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Overseas Famous podcast. We are rolling. Main producer less tonight. John couldn't make it tonight, but it's me and Michaela. And tonight the topic is scammers. We got scammed, I think. And we don't know the facts. We don't know all of it, but I think we got scammed. So we're going to get into that. Michaela, what is up?
Not much. I feel like we got stood up on a date.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. It feels like, oh, we're really looking forward to this. And, we had our questions prepared. It seemed like a great guest, but I guess here we are. But we did our research, so I'm glad we caught it before anything aired.
All right, so let's get into the story. Let's get into what actually happened. So we got this guy's name. We're not going to mention him because he's obviously got a good thing going. And if for some reason there's something he did something under another name or he played under another name and it turns out to be true, egg on our face. So we're not going to mention names. Instead, and I don't want to call him out because he obviously, if he is scamming, he's got a good thing going. So we got his name through a mutual friend. And, kind of that friend was just like, hey, we got him. Here's his name. So last week, I remember, how we do the show. We usually get guests a week before. We've been trying to build up and get guests like a few weeks and schedule it a few weeks before. And as we go, sometimes we have, we're interviewing overseas athletes and shit comes up. So suddenly they back off and they're like, we can't make it. They cancel and we have to kind of figure that out, or we just don't do a show that week. So this thing was scheduled probably like 3 weeks ago, right? So we kept
like flipping people around. I remember we didn't know when Tim was actually going to come on.
Yep.
Like the week it actually happened. I was looking forward to this one. I'm really disappointed.
It's crazy because the name that we got, and this guy said, played for the Steelers and then played overseas football. So we're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's like incredible. So I remember last week, we got the name and we're going through, and the three of us kind of, went through and we're just like, okay, let's start focusing in on next week. But at the same time, we all live busy as shit lives. Michaela is busier than I can imagine. She's working another job. She's, grad school, finishing up that, working on her, final graduate thesis, planning this whole entire docuseries she's running, on top of running, the sports department for Duquesne Media, doing so many things. I'm trying to get the book, and I'm on calls and emails trying to get the business going, the book going. John doing the same thing, family, there's so many things. He's a DJ. So it just kind of slipped through the cracks. And I remember looking and being like, okay, there's nothing there. So then, honestly, I was so busy that all of a sudden this morning came and I'm like, you know what? We don't have any information about this guy, nothing. So I wrote the guy and I'm like, hey, can you tell me where you played professionally overseas? Because I remember he said Italy, or there was the friend said Italy, and we're like, okay. I'm like, can you tell us where you played overseas? No response. So finally I'm like, I'm going to do some vetting. So we're in a chat and we're talking, and I'm like, I typed in his name and I typed Steelers and I typed football. Nothing comes up. Only a page made on a business site that said he won 2 Super Bowls or played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nothing else about it. So we're just kind of like, this is not normal. And I remember reaching out and being like, hold up, Michaela, like, shit's not normal. Like, this doesn't go like that. And I know this just because when you Google my name, I'm fucking competing against a wrestler with my name. But you type Kevin Owens and Monmouth, and 10,000 things come up. You type Kevin Owens basketball, 10,000 things come up. And I didn't play for like NBA, 2-time world champion, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Like, I didn't do that. So when nothing came up, we were like, that's weird. So we kept looking. So I reached out and I'm like, okay, you know, we found out where he went to college, which is a bigger college. And I typed in the name and that college, nothing. And I'm like, all right, fuck that. I'm calling bullshit right now, because unless he has a different name that he played under, what the name he's going by right now, and it's incorrect. He's scamming. So he's like going through life, because we met him because someone said that he played. So he's going through life right now telling people he has a fake Super Bowl ring. And Michaela, we were just talking about that. You can buy that shit anywhere, right?
Yeah. It's pretty easy to find replicas to the untrained eye, like, look legit. Or even have real stones or anything. I was even like looking through his college's rosters for different years that would make sense for him to be there. Just looking for his headshot to make sure, like, oh, are we spelling it wrong? Because that's happened to me when I've had to interview people. I just simply spelled their name wrong. Mm-hmm. And, but I don't know. It's really bizarre. And you don't even have to be an athlete. You can Google my name and I pop up. Yeah. It's like spelled weird, like it's not spelled like every other Michaela, but I can Google Michaela Marie Hall and I pop up. Mm. So I don't know, man. It was really like, I felt like we got stood up on a date, man.
It's so weird. And just the entire day, my entire day now has been spent going, okay, I understand, like, why would he agree to come on the show? And all I'm thinking is he looked at our show as like some rinky-dink thing that's not going to vet, that's just going to be like, oh, here, I can make up some bullshit and go through and tell these guys whatever, because no one's going to listen to it anyway. And it's like a dude in his basement doing it, which, truth be told, I'm currently in my office, which is in my basement. But at the same time, our show is, legit. So we vet people, and we're going through the whole process, and we want to know the whole career. So when we go through, we want to know where you played, all your stats. We go through, and this is a long thing. And this is the first time that we got to the day and we really didn't research. I mean, I did some research last week and couldn't find anything and thought it was weird, but like didn't really think about it until this morning because we've been so busy. So it just happened to slip through the cracks. Now we're on game day. He was supposed to come on today, and like he just bailed. So it just kind of became I'm out. Like I'm peacing out. Like I'm not even involved. And I think when I pressed him and said, okay, you went to this college, right? And he's like, okay. Like he was in the conversation. I was like, what year did you play? Nothing. Like crickets. And that was like the big signal, like this is bullshit, because I understand you're busy at work and stuff, but if someone was asking me stuff and I'm like agreeing to go on their show and I get busy at work, once that person reaches out to me later in the day and is like, are you still good? Like what's going on? Do we have to reschedule? I would write back and be like, oh shit, sorry, dude. Here's all the answers to your questions. Let's get this rolling. He was like avoiding. Nope. So that's why I feel like, do you think he's going through his life? I mean, he has to be, because he's told people at his office that he won 2 Super Bowls, that he went to this college, that he played for this organization, that he was a professional football player. And why this is so, why I wanted to do this show so bad, regardless of whether he's coming on or not, was because I know so many scam deals with overseas basketball. And I know so many dudes who have shown up to gyms or something and just been like, oh shit, you're tall, or oh, you're a big dude. Where did you play? And everyone just goes overseas. And that was the first thought I had with Overseas Famous, because it's like, who the fuck's vetting you? Like, and I feel like this is the world we live in, Michaela. Like, if you met someone and someone was like, oh, hey, how are you? Like at a bar or something, and you're like, oh yeah, I played basketball professionally overseas. Would you go home and be like, hold the fuck on, like I'm checking? Are you the person that would vet that, or will you be like, oh, that's so cool, guess who I met to your friends?
I think the I think the context really determines like how much you can get away with. I think because I instill journalistic integrity into you guys, I'm like, let's see what we're dealing with here before we just decide what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge, because you know, we could be held liable for slander or libel or, you know, anything, and we're not making any of this up. I think that's what's so interesting, is this was just, where do we go from here? Because now we don't have a yes or no answer to the facts that we want to present to people. I think if someone like was making small talk with me at a bar, actually I know for a fact, this is a single day's story. I know for a fact a guy at a bar picked me up because he said he was third string for the Oakland Raiders.
Wow.
And being a young buck who like was into sports media and like, you know, whatever, I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't Googling the guy. I wasn't like looking for his number or anything like that. I was like, well, he's buying me a few drinks and he's very attractive, so I'm just talking to him. You know, and you don't think about, because then if he was lying, it was very smart of him to say like third string, because you're probably not getting media time or attention or time, you know, so yeah.
Michaela, I feel like this episode, more than any other episode we've ever done, is going to be a very big one where I'm going to ask the audience questions, and I want them in the comments of YouTube, in the, you know, in under Twitter and Instagram. In those comments, start leaving your stories, or start leaving your thing, or like your opinions, because like you said, I guarantee this shit happens all the time. I guarantee people will go into a workplace and be like, oh, guess what? I played here. And the thing about it is, you're not going to say, oh, hi, I'm LeBron James. Like, no shit. No, you're not. But you can say, oh, hi, I was I won a Super Bowl ring. I was on the practice squad, but then I ended up playing here, and I had, or I'm like, oh, I play overseas basketball, or like you said, third string for the Oakland Raiders. You're kind of like, oh, okay. You know, that no one's going to know, because there's no factual, even if someone looks you up, you can be like, oh, I guess they didn't pick up that part of it. But when you start getting into Super Bowl rings, like that's where the mistake I think was made. When you start getting to Super Bowls, I sat there today and spent the better part of my day looking up the Pittsburgh Steelers. I looked at every person that got a ring. I went to the training staff. I went to the marketing staff. I went to the chef who was in worked their kitchen, who got a Super Bowl ring. Every single person, and that name was not in any of them. So that's where you're kind of like, oh shit, like this is something's funky here. Because when you start throwing around like, I won a championship, it's like one of those things. If hopefully that guy gets, word gets back that like, maybe you should change that part of your story for your next, venture, to not say that you won a championship. I understand the ring's fun and but if your name is your name, like there is nothing about you, it's impossible. Like you cannot physically exist on a Super Bowl team and have your name and it not show up. It's not possible, not in this day and age.
Right. When everything's archived, everything is recorded and archived. And even like before the internet was super popular, in like 2000s, you could find different colleges rosters from before then, obviously, like you're on this website and stuff. You dinosaur. But the other thing that made me think of this, my cousin, she did corporate real estate for a little bit. Or really, that was her whole career. And then she had kids and stayed home, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so a couple of years ago, she was telling me the story of she would get a lot of like professional athletes from the Philadelphia area because she lives in Cherry Hill. And some of them, if they weren't huge names, like if they were just kind of like second string or like, which I mean, it takes everyone to play a team, but you know what I mean. As far as like the salary cap goes, they were a little lower on the totem pole. So a lot of them breezed through this money, just like went through all of it, and they would show up in her office like trying to get their real estate license. And she asked them, she's like, do you mind if, because she's into sports, so she would recognize them. She's like, do you mind if I ask, where'd all the money go? And they would just be like, I spent it, and now I need a regular people job.
Yeah, I definitely think that's, that's not uncommon. I feel like the transition, and we talked a little bit about that, the transition from like playing professionally to a career is very tough. It's mentally tough. It's tough to find tough to find a job. You've been doing shit one way for 25 years of your life, especially when you've been living a certain way. Mm-hmm. Like you've been living that good life. Pro athletes, you live a good life. So you come home and like, especially like overseas athletes, like you're living a good life and you're making money. Once that money stops though, there is no like severance package. Like the NBA, I have a lot of friends who play in the NBA and they're like, they get, once they play a certain amount of years, they get that pension. And I remember like, talking to a few friends and be like, oh, you just signed that contract, you got that pension, like you're good. Because they get a big chunk of money every year for, like a retirement thing. Right. Overseas doesn't have that. So your money is your money. And if you're living this life and this high life, and all of a sudden you come home and you have no other qualifications or skills, it's difficult, which is why, we're doing what we're doing. And I'm not going to say too much just about what our plan is, but, it's a definite need for people to kind of like, you don't know what you're doing. And I think it's crazy. So you piss your money away and now it's like, now what? So that's crazy. But like the scamming shit is wild. And I do feel like there's so many stories that I've heard of, because even if people probably are like, no one's looking me up when I meet them at like, Wawa or something. They're not looking me up and being like, oh, Kevin Owens, let me Google you. They're just passing by and being like, oh, I just met a professional athlete. But I could have been making that shit up. I could have just been like, nope, I played overseas basketball. And they're like, cool. And they just walk away and they're like, oh, he played overseas. I bet it's like in the comments again, I want to know, has anyone ever used that? I almost want to, has anyone ever been like, tried to be picked up by that line? And has anyone ever used that line of like, oh, I play overseas or I do something here, I'm a professional athlete, third string, things like that? Because I'd be interested to know how deep this goes. And if it's something that's like a regular pickup line for people to say, hey, I played overseas, or, I played professional sports. Like it's, I mean, if you're built well, why not? Like you can just be like, yeah, living my dream. And that person that you talk to that, we talk about like single serving friends, that single serving friend, they're like, that was awesome. And then you never see them again. And what no one's ever looking it up and you just got what you wanted. And there you are. It's wild.
It reminds me of like, I saw a TikTok the other day and it was like boys talking to girls at a frat house, and it's like, yeah, I could have went D1, but like I decided not to. Like, I get surgery. Like it goes into this whole thing, and that's just kind of what it reminds me of. Is like, yeah, I could have played overseas, but I just decided not to. Like it was gonna be too far away.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And we always talk about like how easy people think it is and how, it's such a good, viable thing to be like, oh, I played overseas, because people don't really realize how hard it is to play overseas. And we've talked about this in nausea, but it's fucking hard. It's like a really hard league to get into. And going into that Joe Cole, that's right, Joe Cole, the rapper, J. Cole.
Yes.
J. Cole. Do I call him Joe Cole, dinosaur? So J. Cole, the rapper, goes to the BAL, which is the African league, and he ends up, he's good. He's a very good player for a rapper. He's a very good basketball player for a pickup guy. he goes overseas. He had, 3 games. He has 5 points. He's not doing anything. He's getting, teams are shutting him down. And it's like, if that was any of us, any other overseas athlete, like, see ya, like, deuces, you're getting sent home. Your ass is on a plane, like, right away, because you need to perform. So because he's got a big name, and I get it, he's probably bringing big money in for the league. He's bringing big recognition for the league. I always talked about, like, my last year in Estonia. I think, I was writing and blogging and my stuff was featured on ESPN. So they might have been like, hey, he's tall, he's in shape, he's played, so he's not like a complete liability, but, let's bring him in and see what he can do, because he's blogging and all of this as well. And it will bring, recognition to us. So that's one of those situations where J. Cole, I feel like a lot of people are pissed because he's like stealing a spot. So overseas athletes see it as like, you're stealing our spot. The rest of the world sees it as J. Cole can play overseas basketball. I can too. The African BAL is like, shit, we're getting paid lots of money and we're getting like tons of advertising off this. So fuck it, let's go. But that goes back to like the overseas athletes thinking it's easy. And it's wild because getting back into scamming, I just talked to a guy, or I was looking at his post, a guy we had on the show, Reggie Acosta. Reggie posted something where some guy was trying to almost like get him to play in some league, but there's been a lot of these things lately where guys have been scammed, where they talk to a supposed agent. Now, when you're hungry to play and you're overseas and you're dealing with COVID and everyone's waiting to play, and all of a sudden some guy calls you out of the blue and is like, hey, yo, man, I got a job for you. You gotta, drop this money, send me the money for the plane ticket. I'll shoot you over there. The contract's this. You got, work it, and, you'll make that team. And, it's like $5,000 a month. Now, when you're dealing with like a desperate athlete, that athlete's going to be like, cool, wire that money.
Yeah.
And then it's like, never hear from him again. And the shit like that, I think, is happening a lot. And that's one guess we're going to have to find. Someone who's got caught up in that scam, who's like fell for it, who's paid that money and fell for it. Because Reggie's like a smart dude. He's like, nah, nope, that's not how we're doing it. He's a vet. He's like, that's not how it goes. Like, no, see ya. You do it my way, or we're not doing it at all. And then like, see ya, never heard from him again. But it's just sad that there's so many scammers out there trying to use athletes in such a desperate time. And I just think scamming is just some bullshit.
Well, I think it's easier with all the ways that you can move money online. I mean, how many DMs do we get on podcast, Instagram, where I'm like, Kevin, don't answer it. I'm like, if
every time I answer, really?
If your business strategy is Instagram DM, and
yeah,
you have pictures of actual faces or actual people on your profile, I don't trust you. Like, you are not getting our business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little clip and a little highlight. So when they comment, promote on at blah blah blah,
yeah,
I'm saying no.
Every time. I feel like that. The only reason I know that you post things, by the way, and we're going to talk about, because every time, by the way, when I know you post things, it's because on my phone, I start seeing like IGTV, liked by, and then commented on, advertise on our site. And I'm like, oh shit, like we must have posted something. Michaela posted something, and I was laughing out loud. Like and I have no ego. You know me. Like read my book. Like I'm just like, fuck it, whatever. Like my life is an open book, and I make fun of myself a lot. So I have no ego when it comes to that. But it was hilarious when I saw you were like hot. What did you say? You said hot basketball or like
hot import summer.
Hot import summer, and like I like saw that, and I was just like, this is hilarious, because I guarantee people are going to be like, was that Kevin who wrote that? Because it's like hot import summer. And then you got Tim sitting there, who's a good looking dude, and I'm just like, oh shit, like this is gonna come back to me and being like, I was gonna write like Michaela wrote this. But it was like hilarious because I was just like, this is, and it's so fun. But yeah, like I always want to ask people, business people, and when I'm starting this business, like, who do you know how to trust? Like, how do you know who to trust in this game? How do you know who to trust? Because there's so many people out there trying to just scam you. How can you differentiate the real from the scam? Like people who actually look at you as a value and your business as a value, and people who just look at you as like a dollar sign. Like it's very hard to differentiate those two.
Well, if you're my thing is social media is a huge part of business, and it's not unheard of for good business relationships to happen through DMs. But when the first thing you're giving is like a menu of, oh, for $1,000 we can do this, and for $500 we can do this, and for $600 we can do this, when I can just pay $5 a day to have our stuff promoted on Instagram, and you can't leave the interaction until I give you money, wired however they want it to be wired, and you're trying to form a business partnership with no Zoom meeting or phone call or email correspondence. I mean, call me old fashioned. I just don't think that's a good look or sounds legit.
Well, that is the one thing I feel like I've learned as a business person, is that like if you're willing to set up a meeting, and I feel like that's the first thing we do with people who might, and I feel like we've weeded out quite a few because people have written and said, hey, this, and then we're like, okay, let's hop on a meet, and they're like, no, and they just ghost, similar to our guest today. So when you kind of, really put them on the hot seat and say like, let's set up a meet, and they're out, obviously I think they're a scammer, which is funny because Michaela and I actually were talking before we hopped on about how we were hoping we can get the guy in, and it was going to be, I thought it would have been a great show if he came on and we just kept going until he kind of like, I don't think he would ever admit it, but he probably would have hung up or something or just dropped off the call. But I wanted to kind of like confront him, not confront, but like, keep pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to, spin his story. So he like turned around in circles, because I feel like that's a good journalist. And I think that's what we're both, working to be, hosting this, and I've learned a lot recently with hosting and how to, narrate an interview, and kind of, how do we want the narration to go? What do we want to focus on? And we'll meet and talk about those. So that's why we kind of came up with scammers today, because I was like, it was fresh in our minds, but it would have been fun to kind of, see what we can get. Yeah. And if he hopped on.
Well, the other thing is we can't just not have content because someone we relied on didn't show up.
Yep.
And I really was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, guys, because I was on his Facebook. I'm like, oh, that's just spam. Like, so he probably clicked on it and then shared it. But it was from like 2009. I was like, well, he's older. Maybe he just doesn't like technology. But then, yeah, if I Google your name and I can't find anything, it is 2021. So you don't have to be the person putting stuff on the internet about you, but there will be stuff about you.
There will be something. You win a Super Bowl ring twice, there's something about you. You played on a professional sports team, there's something about you. I was Googling myself just to kind of, I was like trying to prove it to myself. I'm like Googling myself. And like, you can find weird things. You can find like obscure things about like, me with the Sixers when I wasn't even on the team. And, like, it's like just trying to work out and stuff, like, oh, the Sixers are working out this person because they brought back Kevin Owens, and, looked up my brother, like, it's the same thing. Like, oh, they're, training camp and these things. And it's like, you don't have to make a team even. Like if you're talking about professional sports, and this is like, early 2000s, I mean, I can look up, like I looked up Kevin Owens D League, And there was like 40 pages of stuff. And that's like the minor league system. I'm just saying, if you won a Super Bowl ring, there's zero chance your digital footprint isn't somewhere. Like, unless it was a different name, this is bullshit. Which now I would love, obviously I don't want to fuck with someone's life, and that's like big. But it's crazy to kind of, call someone out and be like, you got this job, your whole entire persona, you're telling everyone that not only did you play professional football, but you won 2 Super Bowl rings and you have a ring to show it. And it's like it could all be bullshit. Like, it's just mind boggling. I feel like I'm just trying to think about like the psychology of this whole entire thing. And like, what's going on in someone's mind where they have that low self-esteem that they have to create this whole entire persona. It's like almost like a split personality, like create a whole entire persona about them and like act out a part every day. I feel like that would get just exhausting to just pretend to be someone else every single day. Cause you can't just, once you're in a job and everyone knows, you can't just be like, oh, I'm me again.
But I feel like where he's located, people don't really care as much.
Yeah.
And if it's just something he uses like in social settings or just like as something on his resume that's like, to be different.
Jazzes it up. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think it's even a persona. I think it's just, I don't know. I'm baffled.
Yeah.
I really thought until we hopped on this, we were gonna still talk to him, and I didn't know what to do. I was just gonna sit here like.
It was weird because I feel like I'm like I am good in confrontation on the court. Like, I never shied away from that. I never shied away from, like a physical interaction and stuff. And I was always fine with that. But when it comes to awkward human conversations where you're just outside the court and you kind of have to confront someone, knowing it's not going to lead to a physical thing, it's just going to be, you're going to come off like a dickhead, or you're like emotionally going to be like, that was hard to do. I'm not good at that. That's, a weakness of mine. So when I got the number and I was like, I'm going to text him, and I texted him, I was like, it was like, it took some courage to kind of be like, oh, is this, did you play here at college? Almost, because I was like, I almost was looking for confrontation because I was kind of pissed off that it was like he wasn't giving us any information and we couldn't find any information. And I'm like, if you're not giving us anything and we can't find anything, like, what the fuck's the point of you coming on the show? Like, there's no point.
Well, the other thing too is like you said, this has been like 3 weeks in the making. Why have we waited 3 weeks to be like disappointed?
Yeah. And we told the interns, we're like, we're getting this guy who's played for the Steelers because they're all huge Steelers fans. So it was like an exciting thing too. He also said he had like a friend who played overseas basketball. And I feel like I looked that friend up and that story checked out. I think now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, I remember getting that name and being like, oh, I looked it up and I think it checked out. Maybe it didn't. I have no idea. I was like,
I looked for him in the IFA. Like, I even looked for him in like the Italian football,
yep.
Like American football databases, and like looked for it and everything. He may be using another name. Like, it may be maybe his initials or something instead of his full name.
But I looked up the last name, and then I kind of like took out one of the letters of the last name and took out like a few letters, and I was like, when Google kind of would be like, did you mean, like if you type in Kevin Ovens, maybe they'll say, did you mean Kevin Owens? Kevin Ovens, by the way, was my alias when I had a fake ID. When I was like 18, Kevin Ovens was what was on the actual fake ID, Kevin Ovens. Because it was like a very super bad kind of thing, where we were just, we thought so hard because we're like, we need to use your real first name just in case something happens where someone recognizes you and says, hey, Kevin, that way you can be like, hey, how are you? And they'll be like, oh, wow. There was so much thought put into this at 17 years old, like so much thought to try to figure out what would be the perfect fake ID. Like I always say, Superbad did it right. Like that was like the most accurate movie of all time.
I never had a fake ID. I never needed one.
I was about to say,
I never needed
I feel like girls, you could just go to a bar and people were like, whatever. Like dudes, especially like tall, dorky dudes like me, they were like, you get the fuck out. Where's your ID? I'd be like,
Well, I always dated older, so I got lucky in that regard where it was like, hey, do you want to try this? I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, like whatever. I did get carded twice in the past couple days.
Really?
I didn't have my eyebrows colored in.
Oh.
I know that sounds weird, but every like girl listening is gonna be like, oh yeah, I do look a little babyish without like. So I think it's like the dark, sharp eyebrows that is like, oh, she's seen some shit. Like she needs to be carded. The guy, he literally told me he was just getting a bottle of wine, and the guy at the liquor store was like, oh, do you mind if I see your ID? You look a little young to be in here. And I'm like, sure. Like, thank you. I don't know. I don't know.
I feel so I had to renew my license. And when I renewed my license, everything's online now. So you don't have to go to the DMV because obviously the lines are astronomical. So I guess I qualified for my registration or my license was expiring. So they just sent me all the stuff and they're like, skip the DMV or skip the line. So I did everything online. Well, my license picture is from when I was like 25, maybe 23, 24, 25. So I have no beard. I'm like this dorky looking like, hi, big smile. And I like looked at it and I'm like, I can't, it's like, people are going to be like, that's not you. And I'll be like, no, you know, it's especially because I look younger. And I feel like at some point I'm going to have to go to the DMV. Obviously I'll wait till COVID ends, but I'll have to go to the DMV and like update my picture because I can't have I'm 40 years old. I can't have a picture of me 15 years ago on my updated new license. I feel like there's something wrong with that.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
The secret to staying looking young, like if you want people to like recognize you, I'm convinced it's keeping your hair the same.
Yeah.
My mom had the same haircut and style and color since she was in high school.
Okay.
She has not changed it. She does like the big curlers and like
oh yeah
out, okay, and people like still recognize her from like middle school, high school, like around Cherry Hill. I was like, it's your friggin' hair. I was like, you've never changed your hair or anything. She's like, yeah, I guess that has to do with it. That's my theory.
I look so different. Here's like a picture. I was just taking this because I had to take a picture for like all these ads that I'm creating for the book. But check out that guy. And I was like looking, I was like, my hand, they were like, put your hand on the ball. And I'm like, this
all the way across everyone's left.
Yeah, if this was the only thing you saw, like that doesn't look good. So I was like trying to angle it. I'm like, oh God. I'm just like, these are just the pictures that I had from high school. And that's like one of my best friends is number 5 and he's standing on a chair. So like I'm, obviously a lot taller. Are you taking a picture of that?
Instagram, yeah. We got usually like it's you and someone else talking, so I'm just like boop boop boop, like going. Oh, that's funny.
So those are that's me. So I look nothing like I look nothing the same. So people would be like, couldn't be more different. And I feel like I feel like kids who knew me growing up, they kind of thought I'd be, they kind of knew my personality. I was really nice, but there was like a kind of a dark side to me, which I kind of hid. But my close friends knew, so they're not surprised by like the beard and the tattoos and stuff. It's like I feel like people when I was, late college and like playing pro, I felt like I was almost like not myself. Like I was myself on the court, but like I was always hiding who I was, like who I really was, to just try to please whoever and, be the good guy. And now it's like, so people are like, oh my gosh, you have tattoos. Like, I'm just like, I always had a tattoo. There's one on my thigh since I was like 20 years old. But like, it's just, people didn't really know the real me. So it was crazy, but
Beautiful, Kevin.
Beautiful. See, you guys came in for the scammers, and you got a little taste of the deep insight.
You know what it reminds me of? If we like scammers, not even like, I guess Catfish. It reminds me of Catfish.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I like the thing where it's like, well, take her swimming on the first date because of all the makeup she wears, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, you shave your beard for the first date.
Yeah, it's true.
It works the same way, and sometimes it has to.
Yep, I totally agree. I feel like it was catfished. I feel like we did get catfished. I feel like there's a lot of people getting catfished by this guy. Like he's living this life, and people don't know. I can't get over the psychology of it to think that this is going on. And there's so many things because I feel like it was so detailed, like 2 Super Bowl rings, played for the Steelers, played overseas football, and played Arena League football. Like there was a whole entire long list of things. Like, could you imagine if I was just making all my shit up and I was like, oh, I played for BC Caleb Cremo, I played for Hyundai Momus Phoebus, Sigel Pristina, Cairns Taipans, Wellington Saints, like all of these different teams, and Sravik and Roanoke Dazzle. I'm going through all these different things, and none of it happened. Like, if I was just telling people that, it's just wild. And I feel like so many people look me up, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. It's just wild to think that you can be so detailed into your lie.
Yeah, I don't even have an explanation.
Yeah, I got nothing, and I really do want to see how this plays out because we kind of talked to our friend, and we're just like, what's happening, man? Like let's kind of, try to figure out what's going on because there's some shady shit going on. And I almost like rescheduled. I didn't call him out. I almost rescheduled. So I would love to kind of catch him because there's no way, obviously he didn't check the show or he would have known it's a real show and not like a dude in his basement or you know what I mean? Like a fucking teenager in his basement. So I'd love to, it'd be fun if we got him on and kind of like got the whole story and like confronted him. But that would be, that would take.
Yeah, that mentality would be really frustrating because none of us are here for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Like that's really annoying if someone were to think that.
And that was the one thing that I thought the most of, and I think I told you, I was like, I don't want this guy to come on because I don't think he's real. And I don't want him to come on and just lie and tell this whole story because we're like a real shit. We don't want someone coming on and lying. And then we look like we lose our credibility like instantaneously. Like all our credibility is like, we have all these great guests and shot because we had some liar on and we never called him out on it. So I'm glad that our credibility, at least our street cred, remains intact because we had this show and we called him out on it. Although, I'm not going to mention his name for, our friend's sake. And just,
I will say, if I may, there is time for redemption.
Oh, yeah. He can come.
We need the proof.
Yeah. There is time. Yeah. If there's suddenly, we find out and be like, oh, I kind of changed this part of my name. I just feel like you wouldn't change your last name. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Like professional sports, it's not like being like a pop star. Like
who
really has a stage name?
Exactly.
In professional sports, there's nicknames and then there's like stage names. And there's a huge difference. So I don't even see that happening. I feel like this person has like a villain origin story. Like, I don't know. Maybe they didn't get on the team and this is like their vengeance.
Yeah.
I was equipment manager, which is a legit job. I'm not talking shit on equipment managers.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, maybe they really wanted to be on the team. And that's how they got the ring.
But
or their college. But then they piece everything on. Like, why would you lie about such a big organization? And the Steelers, like, I'm not saying this just because I live in Pittsburgh. They have a huge following. And so I was like, well, it kind of makes sense if he played for the Steelers and then went to Italy because there is a Steelers themed bar in Rome.
Yeah,
and
I remember you said that.
But it's true. Everyone who like studies abroad, at least at Duquesne, they go to the Steelers themed bar and it is black and yellow and it's like you're back in Pittsburgh. So it was just a lot of things like benefit of the doubt and risk looking like idiots.
Yeah.
or you know what? Sorry, this isn't gonna work.
Well, I think talking a little scammers tonight was fun. I think getting it out of our system because we were pissed was fun as well. Sorry, John missed this, but we'll catch him up with everything. But again, scamming is a real thing. Scamming in business, scamming overseas, agent scamming is like a real thing. So we want to hear kind of, in the comments, if you've ever had this, contact us overseasfamous@gmail.com or, leave a comment and tell us. Maybe we'll have you on the show to kind of talk about your story. Or you could just be scamming a scammer. Like, how many layers of scam? We're opening it up to comments from the world and being like, hey, if you have a story to tell, hop on the show. We'll have you on the show. And some guy's like sitting in his basement like, I have a story to tell. I used to play for, and you're like, come on this. Oh my God. We're doing our best of vetting these guests, but we've had really good ones. I think we've had a really good show so far. So this is the first craziness that happened, but it was definitely fun to kind of, vent and get that out. So if you guys have a scamming story, leave it in the comments or overseasfamous@gmail.com. Yeah. And the last thing I know, we always talk about like people listening to the end of a podcast. I do with the ones I like, especially when I'm working out or something like that. But check out our blogs. I think this is a really fun thing that we did. And I think we have really talented people writing and sharing their story. I was reading Maria's and I'm like, this is so good. It's like it's a very well thought out writing. Jahevi is dealing with some shit right now. I mean, it's tough. He's in Israel. They're in the middle of a war zone. There's a ceasefire right now, but like all the players are like, yo, get us the fuck out of here. And the teams are like, no, you have a job to do. So it becomes like a very difficult situation to mentally stay with it when all this is going on and you just want to go home and the teams are like, no, you have to stay or you don't get paid. And that's the name of the game. You're doing it for a reason. So, prayers up for Jahevi. He's going to send us something. He wrote me. He's like, dude, I'm just mentally drained right now. I so apologize. But, Malik, Aaron's, he's leaving stuff all the time. So check out our blogs. It's a lot of fun. We're having a good time. And, when you don't listen to the whole podcast, but you can hop on and grab a minute or 2 minutes or a few minutes vlog or, a 5-minute read of what's going on overseas with athletes who are actually experiencing it and not scammers who play for the Steelers. So, Michaela, good times. This is our first show, just you and I. It was fun.
Nice little bonding time.
Right? That's all it is. John's not here, but, we'll catch him up again. Like I said, I'm repeating myself, but this is a good time. So beware of scammers. Beware of overseas scammers. Beware of professional athletes. Every time, here's my advice to you, ladies and, gentlemen. If someone comes up to you and says, I played here, their name is in Google. So all you have to do is type in their name and it will pop up. If it doesn't, they're fucking lying to you. Match the picture too. Don't be like, oh yeah, oh, really, you're Marshawn Lynch, and you type it in and be like, wait a minute. You make sure that everything matches up. Make sure, you're not getting scammed by a pickup artist at a bar who's just pretending to be an athlete. Make sure when you hop over to the playgrounds and some guy comes up and is like, I played overseas, Google him. Vet everyone at this point. Let's try to separate the reals from the fakes and go from there. Michaela, this was fun. Any last thoughts?
No, that's just about it. I mean, if you don't care, I guess that's the other thing about my story. I didn't care if he played for the Raiders or not. I was like, I don't care. Like, that's the only thing I'll put in there. If you don't care, go for it.
Go for it. Yep. Yeah. If you're like, because I mean, sure, there's people come up with pickup lines all the time, and you're kind of like, you worked hard for this. Like if this dude came up and was talking to me, I was like, dude, you worked really hard building this whole entire fake persona of yourself, building this alias. I'm not going to fuck it up. That's why we didn't mention his name. We're not going to fuck it up, but we're telling you, vet everyone. Check it out. Your phone's right there. Just Google them. Anyone tells you they played pro sports, their name is in a database. They played college sports, their name is in a database. You can't play a college sport. You can be a Division III squash player, and you put that name in and that college, and it's gonna come up. So don't get suckered.
And let this be a warning to everyone else. In the nicest way possible, we are not a rinky-dink little podcast, and we do take this very seriously. So don't be fucking around over here just trying to get your 5 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm. Even though you're not famous.
Kevin might be too nice. I am not. Don't come around here with that.
I love it. This is Michaela and Kevin. This has been the Overseas Famous Scammer Edition podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Check us out, overseasfamous.com. Leave some comments to kind of give us some feedback if you have been scammed before, whether on a date, whether at the bar, or on a podcast, or by an agent. We'll see you guys next time. Kevin Owens, Michaela Hall, out.
Who else really trying to with Hollywood Code? I'm with Marley G, bro, flying Holly Grove chicks to my Hollywood shows. And I wanna tell you something that you probably should know. This that Slumdog Millionaire Bollywood flow. And my real friends never hearing from me. Fake friends write the wrong answers on the mirror for me. That's why I pick and choose. I don't get you confused. I got a small circle. I'm not with different crews. We walk the same path, but got on different shoes. Live in the same building, but we got different views. I got a couple cars I never get to use. Don't like my women single. I like my chicks in twos. And these days, all the girls is down the road. I hit the strip club and all them bitches find a pole. Plus I've been sipping, so this shit is moving kinda slow. Just tell my girl to tell a friend that it's time to go. Now tell me how you love it. You